This meeting of Washoe County Board of Commissioners is called to order. I'm sorry, can you hear me now? Okay. This meeting of the Washoe County Board of Commissioners is called to order. Mr. White, would you lead us in the pledge to the flag?
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, may I please ask for a roll call?
Of course. Chair Hill is absent. Vice Chair Herman.
Here.
Commissioner Clark.
Present.
Commissioner Garcia.
Here.
Commissioner Andreola.
Present.
County Manager Eric Brown.
Here.
And our District Attorney today, Mike Larch.
Present.
And I'm Jan Galla, Senior County Clerk. Madam, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will be now having the invocation. And this is by, I know that I saw it there, Convo Church.
Yes, so, Madam Chair, so the item 3 is the invocation from Craig Dyson of Convo Church.
Testing. All right, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, creator of the universe and of all life, it's with a humble and repentant spirit that we call upon you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, through the supernatural power of your Holy Spirit. We are reminded today of the first commandment that you gave us in Exodus 20, verse 3, where you tell us you must not have any other God but me. So before we invite you into the purpose, the people, and proceedings of this room, we recognize you as the one true and only God upon which this world and our nation were founded. We openly denounce any other spirit or demonic entity that has been evoked in this room by Satanists, spiritualists, and other individuals, and we rebuke any curse that has been placed upon this room, the servant leaders who sit in this room. And we tear down any spirit of division and corruption that has dominated previous sessions, and we declare the presence, the power, the providence, and the guidance of you, Heavenly Father, over those who preside and serve in this room from their seats of service. We recognize that all authority, wisdom, and ability to lead comes from you. Therefore, we ask, Lord, that you would reveal yourself personally in the lives of these public servants. We pray that they would seek you as their God with all their hearts. And I pray that you would be the source they seek as decisions are made in this room to serve the people of Washoe County with wisdom, with morality, and justice. When their judgment is true, may you confirm it and bless it. And when their judgment is misguided, may you reveal truth and wisdom to bring correction. We acknowledge that every man and woman will one day stand before your presence and give an account for their life and how they stewarded what you have placed in their hands according to your word and truth. So may your Holy Spirit bring guidance and wisdom needed to govern with integrity in a way that honors you. We boldly and humbly offer this prayer and petition to you, God, in the name of your mighty, matchless Son, our Lord, our Savior and King, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We have so much to be thankful for. And God bless America. And now it is time for public comment.
Item 4 is public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission will also hear public comment during individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the commission as a whole. Virtual public comment eligible when facilities are available. Public comment is welcomed during public comment periods and is limited to 3 minutes per person per public comment period. Unused time may not be allocated to other speakers. A speaker's viewpoint will not be restricted. However, reasonable restrictions may be imposed upon the time, place, and manner of speech. Irrelevant statements, unduly repetitious statements, and personal attacks that would objectively antagonize or incite others are examples of speech that may be reasonably limited. All comments are to be directed to the commission as a whole. The Board of County Commissioners carries out the business of Washoe County and its residents during its meetings. The presiding officer may order a person be removed if the person's conduct or statements disrupt the order or safety of the meeting. Warnings about disruptive conduct or comments may or may not be given prior to removal. Furthermore, certain disruptions of public comment are criminal acts as defined under NRS 203.090 and or NRS 203.119, which may result in prosecution in appropriate cases.
First up, we have Paul White, followed by Terry Brooks.
Paul White with Education Crusade. I have to ask how long all 5 of you are going to continue to sit on your hands, ignore the crumbling county you were elected to oversee and protect, and do nothing. 5 years ago, a period during which all of you at one time or another were in office, Reno was ranked by economic indicators the 4th best city in the nation by the Milken Foundation. Last week, their newest ranking came out, and during the 5 years when none of you were doing anything, our ranking has dropped over that time, 4th, 18th, 19th, 49th, now 93rd. Could it be because no business in their right mind would look at the CARES campus crime mess that you created and it's spilled over into the community and bring or keep their businesses here? Could it be because you don't say one word to a county school district that gives diplomas to 90% of its graduates that are minimally literate, who are 50% drug abusers, have no respectful behavior, and cannot even qualify for minimal college classes? You've sat and watched while your premier downtown county library has been taken over, not by homeless men, earnest homeless men trying to get ahead, but by vagrant, addicted, criminally inclined scum who urinate on the front of the building, smoke meth right outside the front door, and watch hardcore porn 7 hours a day provided by the library, and also to any children who want to watch over their shoulders. And when the library board wants to get rid of the degenerate library director who allows this library disaster, your own county attorney tries to scare them off by falsely claiming that an at-will employee requires infinite procedures before they can be fired. Less than 2 weeks ago, a former CARES campus resident just settled a lawsuit against your provider of the CARES campus, your contractor, for the abusive way the facility is run. While Manager Brown continues to tell his PR person, Drysdale, continue allowing no one in the community to visit and see what really happens. And through all this, all of you, 5 of you have just sat there, done, and said nothing. Your presence on the board, your total unwillingness to put any meaningful agenda items up for public discussion and action is strangling our county's future. And if you care about any of this and much more, do something. Speak out or stand down.
Terry Brooks, followed by Rich Bissett.
Good morning, it's me, Terry Brooks again. And today I'd like to address following the politics when it comes to homelessness. Following the politics to homelessness is quite an episode. Whenever I follow politics, I sometimes find a fork in the road. Two sides of politics sometimes don't agree with one another. One side says one thing, the other side says another. Some politicians say the rich should pay more taxes than the poor. Some politicians say the rich should not have to pay more. Some politicians say the poor need help to get employed. Other politicians say the poor don't want to be employed. Some politicians say the poor should receive an affordable, good education. Others say that the poor don't want an education. Some politicians say the poor need affordable housing. Others say the poor don't deserve a cheaper access to housing. Some politicians say the poor need access to food, while others say that the poor don't deserve free food. Some politicians say the poor need access to health care. Some say the government should pay for the poor people's health care. Some politicians say the poor need facilities for mental health. Some say the government should pay for the poor people's mental health. Some politicians say the poor need help to get out of poverty. Others say it's their own fault that they are wound up in poverty. So I'm doing research on each of these matters. Some say it doesn't matter, while others say it matters. I'd like to add that homeless people are less likely to vote, so to some politicians that means that they are less likely to rock the boat. I would like to thank you all for listening to me today, and I will try not to rock any boat with things I have to say. Thank you.
Rich Bissett, followed by Roger Edwards.
Good morning, Commissioners. I just want to comment, I did not intend to, but when I heard Mr. White's comments, I have to say that I also read that report, and the reason they gave that Reno has gone down in ratings is affordable housing. They mentioned no other, lack of affordable housing. Reno is still a booming city. Tomorrow, I'm going to be attending a Reno City Council meeting in the evening that will talk about the 3 data centers that are coming into the city, if approved. You only need to drive around the city and see all the buildings going up. That is part of the reason there's lack of affordable housing. People are still coming to this city. So maybe don't take those comments so seriously. You've done a good job, in my opinion. What I wanted to talk about was the item about the AQI sensors that are going in via the Nevada Public Health. I think that's great. They're needed. They're going to go along I-80 and 580 to see the impact on people of the air quality. I've been keeping measurements, and I will try to provide those next time. I get something, it's available to everyone from the NNPH that says every day what the expected air quality is for that day and the next. And I'm surprised to tell you that there are many days that we are over an AQI of 50, but very few people know about it. One, they don't get the little emails that I get, although they could sign up for those. And two, temperature is given priority in TV newscasts and radio newscasts, but they seldom mention the air quality. And when they do, it's only because there's a huge fire going on usually. Or another time it really spikes is after fireworks. The day after fireworks is a bad day not to be wearing a mask in Reno and Sparks. So I applaud that more is being done, and I know Reno has barriers around the Reno Indian colony on the freeway, and Sparks needs that too. There's a whole amount of area that is right up against the I-80, and all that stuff just comes into the city. If we can get newspapers and the radio stations to start telling people what the AQI is daily, maybe some of them will realize they're at risk and they'll do something about it, like wear a mask. Thank you for your time.
Roger Edwards, followed by Bruce Foster.
Good morning. Roger Edwards for the record. 50-year resident. Please enter my comments into the permanent record as per NRS. Back up here, complaining about the bill I continue to receive from the county for my water recharge program that I helped start back in '94 and has been shut off for 8 years this July. I really shouldn't be receiving a bill for services I'm not receiving. I don't know why Washoe County has such a problem recognizing these obvious facts. I guess it takes a lawsuit to get their attention. All right, I can do that. Also, I'd like to have my name put into the file someplace for a senior services board position. I know all about it. It should be on that board. And anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's the day after inauguration, and I'm Bruce Foster for the record, and my pronoun is we the people. And I wish to welcome everyone, the shopping cart capital of Northern Nevada. First of all, I wish to employ you all to take a look at divesting yourself of the DEI program that is set up here in Washoe County. And we have to take a look at that because, as we all know, or may not know, Donald Trump abolishes the DEI for the feds. And it was a 2-year campaign for colorblind equality, notches its biggest win yet. That was the headlines this morning. But we want to know how we got here. And I'm going to quote Christopher Rufo. The first step to understand how DEI bureaucracies became embedded in the federal government, that is the result of actions by 2 presidents, Barack Obama, who issued Executive Order 13583, which laid the groundwork for many national diversity initiatives, and Joseph Biden, who signed Executive Orders 13985 and 14035, which entrenched DEI principles into every federal department and routed billions of dollars towards advancing this ideology. And my question is that how did that work out for California and the poor people of Los Angeles? So moving on, the argument began to take hold. The polling data indicated that Americans supported a colorblind society and race-conscious society by margins. Even the New York Times, one of the largest boosters of left-wing racialism, started publishing pieces that criticized DEI. So the bottom line is that the question is that Mr. Eric Brown, did he get his bonuses and his raises and his other perks based on DEI, or was it merit? And then I also put out a shout out to all the churches in Washoe County. And as I'm a part of a community impact team from Calvary Chapel, Reno Sparks, as well as Convo, Pastor Greg, I challenge other churches of Washoe County to join the movement in common sense and into a new era of golden age of biblical citizenship. Thank you.
There's nobody else signed in.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item is Commissioners and County Manager announcements. Mr. Manager?
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 5 is Commissioners and County Managers announcements, reports, and updates to include boards and commissions updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
Do you have anything for us today?
I do not, Madam Chair, this morning.
Do we have any members of this commission that have announcements? Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got some comments. Number one, I'd like to talk about the Community Homeless Advisory Board meetings, or the lack thereof. We haven't had one of those for some time. They've been canceled. I got an email from Chair Hill that basically said that unless I have a good reason to have a Community Homeless Advisory Board meeting, there was really no need to have one. And I've got I think four good reasons why we should have and continue to have Community Homeless Advisory Board meetings. I think the commissioners all need to hear from the folks living on the streets, the folks that are impacted by that, who live that life, and for us to have a better understanding, I'd like to have those folks at a meeting where we could talk to them and find out what seems to be working, what they'd like to see more of, and what might help them move off the streets. I've had a great partnership for a long time with the head of the Chamber of Commerce here, Ann Silver. She has hundreds of jobs. She calls them careers. She will train folks that want to be trained. She will get them their GED if that's what they need. She'll get them up to speed on whatever it takes, classroom-wise and work-wise, and teach people how to go on interviews. She was told by the county, the head of the CARES campus, that as soon as the intake building was finished, and whatever the new other building is that we're finished there, that she would have an availability of a classroom to come to the campus and teach the folks at the homeless campus how to get a job and how to improve their place in life. And then as soon as those buildings were finished, she was told that that wasn't going to be available. So I'm just wondering why the county is reluctant to have some nonprofit, in this case, the Chamber of Commerce, come on board and teach folks how to get a job and a better life. So again, back to the Community Homeless Advisory Board. One of the first reasons is our town, Reno, had a report on November 11th about deaths. I'm interested in deaths on the street. I'm interested about deaths at the CARES campus. I think deaths are probably the foremost reason why we should have, as commissioners, a better understanding of what's taking place there. I don't like to hear about anybody dying when they're in the care of the county. I know for those who've been around for a while, when Chuck Allen was the sheriff, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, whatever it was, several deaths at the jail kind of derailed his political career and he was vilified for that. And if we were worried about people dying in the jail, we should also be worried about people dying in the CARES campus. Again, it's CARES campus that's run by Washoe County, so it's our responsibility to make sure people are safe there and don't die. So again, so here's 4 good reasons. The article in Our Town Reno talking about deaths on January 9th, it was reported that a Volunteer of America employee who works at the CARES campus ran over somebody on the way to work. Again, I wasn't a witness to this, but this is what I'm reading. They did not stop and render aid to the person, a homeless person on the street, and continued on to work where they reported that they drove over somebody. I don't want to find out what happened to that person. Did they survive or not? So that's the second reason. On January 19th, we've got another death at the CARES campus. I'd also like to find out about the REAP. It's Rural Emergency folks from other counties dropping folks off at the CARES campus. I'd like to know the total number of folks that were brought here from other counties. We're supporting taxpayers of this county are supporting homeless people from all over the region. I understand the other rural counties may not have the facilities we have, but if they're going to send their homeless folks to our community, maybe they should share in the cost of that. Maybe we should have some sort of an agreement with these rural counties. How long was that practice allowed to continue? When was it discovered? Is it still taking place? Are people still being bussed in or driven in or transported to our community? Then I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Another comment about working from home. I noticed Governor Lombardo over a year ago directed folks in this state to go back to work, state employees, and go back to pre-COVID regiments where they were working during business hours. I understand, and I'm not an attorney, I brought it up to Mr. Large this morning about the federal government now is insisting that all the federal employees come back to work as they were before pre-COVID. I'm just wondering what the county's position is going to be on that. And I'd like a discussion on that. I'd like to see that be an agenda item in the future where we can discuss how these hundreds of new federal guidelines that were apparently put into place yesterday, how they're going to affect and impact this county and the citizens of this county. Got a few more items here. Mr. White, Paul White made some comments today about the libraries, and he just every week he comes in and talks about this, and I've asked questions based on what he said. So when he comes in and makes a blanket accusation that no one up here cares, I know I do about what's taking place, and I know several of the other commissioners are very concerned about the libraries as well. I'm just a bit more vocal about it than they are, and as far as the library, my focus here in the county is the library, the CARES campus, and the seniors. So the CARES campus and the seniors are kind of one and the same for me. A high percentage, if not a majority, of the homeless folks are seniors. So senior services, is not only just for other seniors, it's for the folks that are on the street as well. So those are big concerns of mine. Terry Brooks, it's always good to see Terry show up. I understand, I just found out the other day that Terry is on the Senior Advisory Board in the city of Reno, so I know it's important to him. I see him at our county meetings on a regular basis. And that's all I have for now. Thank you. Wait, hold it 1 second. I have two items I want to put on the record. One is, this is an update from the county. Last week at our meeting, we had a report on the viability of the county, the finances of the county, the diminished C taxes, and just that type of thing. And yet I'm getting an update from the county. It says talent management updates. It's a printout on the county's website that things were strapped. The PERS contributions have increased for all the county employees, and yet we've hired 343 new full-time and part-time permanent employees. So on one hand, we're getting ready to be in a constricted economy and belt tightening here, and yet we've got 343 new employees. So I'd like to know a little bit about how much the cost of that is for the total payroll and the PERS contributions and insurance and whatever the full cost is of 343 new employees. I'm going to put this piece of paper on the record. And lastly, I want to talk about a nonprofit that's doing a great job in the county that I support. I have no involvement other than supporting them. It's called Senior Rescue. They help seniors that get a rent increase, seniors that are on a fixed income, if they get $200 or $300 a month rent increases and they're on a fixed income, the Senior Rescue will help them for a year. So they'll contribute to their rent payment for up to a year. Well, the seniors can figure out if they can find another place to move to or figure out how to find other finances to make that work for them. So it bridges the rent increase. They're also starting a new senior magazine. Again, if many of you know that I'm very involved with the seniors, it's called Senior Rescue Magazine, and they're going to cover things for seniors. So they're having a meet and greet tomorrow at Swill Coffee between 2 and 4 if you want to come and meet them, and if you're interested in senior issues and senior requests and senior information, I think this will be a great opportunity to meet those folks. I'm going to put both of these in the public record. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Andriola, do you
Thank
have
you.
anything for us?
Thanks. I am going to see, Madam Chair, if you're okay, and the board as a whole, for moving item 6 after the presentations, which is item 9. So keeping everything the same, just moving item 6 after item 9, if that's within your okay.
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
So, Commissioner Garcia, do you have anything?
Madam Chair, I had arranged to have somebody join me on the proclamation. Is there a reason why we need to push that back? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Now that we've squared that around. Item 7 is Abby Pike and Holly Gatsky to present the Washoe Extension's Annual Impact Report.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 7 is the UNR Extension meeting Abby Pike, as you said, and Holly Gatsky to present the Washoe Extension's Annual Impact Report. They will share details of activities in the county relating to the 4-H development, SNAP, ed, horticulture, and Living with Fire programs.
Happy to be here to provide you with the annual report of programs for extension. We'll do it in a quick manner. Of course, we have a whole lot more going on than what we can touch on, but I just thought we'd run through our slides real quick and give you an introduction to extension. I'm happy to have Abby Pike with me today. She's on, and a connection for you all, besides myself, for extension work in Washoe County. And so she will be actually presenting a lot of this. I'm just going to give you the first slide, which is a background of what extension is. Yes, can you? Thank you. Perfect. Basically, just as a background, you all have, we've talked and worked with you all, so you have a great idea of what extension is. But for the audience, basically, we're out there to identify critical community needs and design educational programs and activities to address those needs that fit within our budget. We identify needs and do program evaluation to see impacts in growing. And we are mandated by the state law to cover 6 program areas with the ad valorem tax that comes in. So we are dedicated to giving a return for the public's tax money in the areas of community and economic development, health and nutrition, agriculture, natural resources, youth, personal, and family development, which includes 4-H and horticulture. So we're just going to give you a quick rundown of what we're doing in these areas.
Good morning. Our 4-H Youth Development Program works with youth ages 5 to 19 to help them develop life skills, build their character, and connect with their community in a safe and supportive environment. We offer programming in schools, after schools, in club forums, and in day and overnight camps. There's a special focus on STEM education and leadership development for these students. As you can see in the pictures, there are so many activities that they get involved in, whether that's science experiments, training dogs, showing goats, or raising reptiles. The students have a lot of fun. This year, we impacted almost 10,000 youth, and we are expanding our 4-H team and increasing employee retention to make sure that these programs can continue and reach even more youth in our community. Our horticulture team is empowering residents to develop productive and efficient landscapes, grow their own food, and support pollinators. This education is important for developing our local ecosystem and decreasing food deserts in our community. Our horticulture team also offers several workforce development programs to landscapers, nursery workers, and land managers. These programs offer continuing education units and ensure that workers are up to date on the best research and practices for their fields. I want to highlight here our bilingual landscaper training, which worked with 40 participants in both English and Spanish to learn about pruning, landscape management, irrigation, and pest control in their respective languages. Our master gardeners are trained volunteers who go through extension education and are then prepared to offer community educational workshops, answer any questions from Washoe County residents, and grow seedlings that are adapted to our Northern Nevada climate. A highlight of the year was our Bartley Ranch Gardening in Nevada horticulture education series, which will be offered every Tuesday in February and March. And we had 916 community members learn more about home horticulture through this program. Our Living with Fire team is doing relevant work to help homeowners and residents in the county learn about how they can adjust to life with wildfire right in our backyard. They are working with regional partners to implement programming and provide workshops that help people prepare for the threat of wildfires. A big highlight of this year was the Fire Adapted Nevada Summit. We had 106 attendees that learned more about how to build community resilience in the face of wildfires. They also taught 68 classes on fire science at the Academy of Arts, Career, and Technology. This is a really incredible program that prepares students to enter the workforce as wildland firefighters as soon as they graduate from high school. 14 students were able to participate in the mock fire drill near Hidden Valley. Our health and nutrition program, they offer supplemental nutrition assistance program education to more than 2,000 Washoe County residents with limited resources who are eligible for SNAP benefits. They work with people from pre-K children to seniors to make sure that they are prepared to make healthy choices and live active lives. In the picture here, we have an activity they did with young children where the kids came up with fun names for different snacks and fruits and vegetables that they had in their cafeteria. This was done to make healthy eating more accessible and fun for the kids. And we also work with SNAP-eligible adults to make sure they know they can use their SNAP benefits at farmers markets for fresh and local foods. A few other programs, we have the Nevada Radon Education Program, which works with Nevadans to make sure that they know about the threat of radon gas. It's naturally occurring, and it's the leading cause of lung cancer for non-smokers. We tested 2,435 Washoe homes, mitigated 153 that tested with high levels of radon, and we educated 949 real estate professionals on the importance of testing for radon during the home buying process. Our early childhood education team works with pre-K and early childhood workforce to make sure that they are prepared to recognize signs of neglect, implement wellness practices at their workplace, and support childhood development by age. And I will turn it back over to Holly for the fiscal report.
Okay, so remember this is FY 23-24. Just so we're halfway past that one, but I'm just trying to create some clarity. Basically, we have an opening and ending fund balance of $2.4 million, a little over that. With our revenue, that is considered just over $2 million. We spent $1.886. We are, instead of rushing into hiring new employees, we are strategically looking at what types of areas that we're going to be working in, have talked to some of you about that, and definitely different other agencies within the Washoe County. I think it's critical that we strategically think about long-term employment and how we do that, recognizing what's going on. We do bring in federal money, which is small but a bit, and state money, and probably the most important part is there's over $1.5 million that came from sponsored projects is grants, and the $225,000 is other funds that were brought in. So we work hard and have a good portion of our team that is paid with funds. Just so you know, those opening balances, end balance, it is high. We are holding back a little bit of money as growth has happened because we currently are barely fitting into our facility right now. And, we just keep stuffing more people into corners, but we can only do that for so long. And in fact, some of our classes are having to move to other facilities, which is not a problem, but we need to make sure that we reach the public where we can and how we can. And so we got a little bit of money as a seed start for the future when we do look at needing more facility space. And we've left the rest of the time for questions. So,
Thank you very much. That's a wonderful report. Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions.
Commissioner Clark?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report. I like that fiscal report. Looks like things are in order there. A personal question about how do I get involved with the Master Gardener program? I'd like to learn more about that. I'd like to maybe take some of those courses. So, if you'd share it with me, maybe the rest of the public that are interested in it could find out as well.
Certainly. The Master Gardener program is available. There is a fee for it, just so you know. Some of our classes, that's how we keep some of our programs going. Those needing some support, let us know. We can do that, but please call the Washoe Extension Office on Energy Way, or hit our website, and you can hit Master Gardener and find the email to connect. I do believe there's a new series coming up in the spring, and then they have one in the fall. They're actually realigning and figuring out what programming we can handle. We've had such a high uptake in Master Gardeners that we're kind of trying to figure out how to capacity-wise handle it all, but that's okay. We're happy to help and serve and work with the community, so there'll be more classes, even more classes introduced online, and there is always great classes with our community partners on in person. So definitely you have to connect and look online, talk to our people on what would fit your interest in classes, because there's a wide range.
Thank you. Sounds like a popular class. Also, the other one you had about landscaping, pruning, and that. What's involved with that? How do you get involved in that course? The one they had bilingual, and you mentioned on one of the slides there.
Oh, yes, I can go back to that slide if that's helpful. I believe that they work with local nurseries and landscape companies, so we're really advertising directly to the people who are already involved in that workforce. But if you want more information on it, I can let our team know and send it to you when registration is open.
So as a civilian, yeah, I'm not in that industry, obviously, but I'd like to know more about it. I've planted, probably 200 trees on my property and about 800 bushes, and not all of them make it, but most of them have. But I'd like to know more about the proper way to do that. Being self-taught isn't always the best way.
Definitely. It sounds like the Nevada Scapes and the Grow Your Own program, that might be the best way for you personally or other community members to learn if they're focusing on their own properties and how to manage them rather than, the workforce development side of it.
Sure. And I'll shift gears a little bit. I took a tour, must have been a year or so ago, and then the county courthouse is over off of Sierra Street there. And there's a radon, they called it a radon tunnel underneath Sierra Street. Do you know anything about that? Have you ever tested, they talked about testing a bunch of different buildings in the county. Have you ever tested the Washoe County Courthouse to see what the radon levels are in that facility?
That's interesting. I don't know that our office has, but we are currently offering free radon testing kits through January and February as it's Radon Awareness Month. So we can send some free kits your way if you're interested in testing county facilities.
Sure. I won't be doing the testing, but I need to find out if that's been done recently. And, they called it the radon tunnel to kind of let some of the fumes or gases, whatever it is, that emits from the ground and go underneath Sierra Street. I just wanted to see I'd be interested to find out what the levels are in a county facility. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Last time you came, you had expressed some concerns about this space, but you addressed that. That was going to be my first question, but more than anything, thank you for all of the impact you make for all Nevadans. It's economic, social, environmental. The reach that you have is massive, so thank you for all your hard work. A lot of talk about living with fire, and I was hoping that you could maybe go back to that slide and let people know how they can access that information and maybe talk a little bit more in depth about that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So our Living with Fire team, they're doing a great job right now increasing their community reach and sharing this information with homeowners and residents. There is the Living with Fire website. They have all of their resources on there. It has information on what to put in a go bag, how to start building community resilience, like the conversations you need to have with your neighbors about wildfire. So I would recommend that everyone in the county check that out. It's definitely better to be prepared for wildfire. Yeah, so the website is the best place. And then we also have the Fire Adapted Nevada Summit's second session coming up this March 17th and 18th. We'll have all the community partners there, and it's open to the public to really keep the conversations going on community resilience and adapting to wildfire.
I was just going to add, for the Living with Fire website, a lot of people don't realize that you have the opportunity and the power to actually make your home more fire resistant. Doesn't mean it won't go up in a fire that's serious, but there is a lot you can do to actually make your home more fire resistant, and that information is on the website. So how and when to consider evacuation, be planned, take your pets with you, things like that. Some great information that I myself even got caught up in the last thing, and that I knew where to get the information, but I hadn't really drilled down and done it until the community I was living in was under, watch. And then I'm like, I got to drill down, go to this website, pull this stuff together. And I did it quite quickly. It's quite amazing, because now I feel a lot more comfortable where I'm at. I had already fit my home up, but I hadn't done, that prepare to leave. Somehow we believe that we're resistant and not going to have that happen in our lives, and the reality is we're in a high-risk area. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner Andriola?
Thanks. I'll echo everyone's sentiment about the hard work that you do and the contributions that actually span not just Washoe County, but essentially northern Nevada. And I wonder if you could speak to that, because sometimes I think that when you talk about the cooperative extension, it's just, concentrated, if you will, in Reno Sparks proper, but you are much farther than that. And I thought it might be helpful for you to share what your reach is, and also just in terms of the flexibility that you've had. I really have enjoyed the meetings that I've had with you in the past, in terms of what you're looking at with not only meeting demands, but being trend on what things might be important to people, by getting feedback from people. So I thought maybe you could touch on those two things: breadth of program, and then the flexibility of moving into areas of interest.
Yes, no, definitely, I appreciate that opening. We tend to forget to tell people that we are statewide. We have offices and people working in 15 of the 17 counties, but work in all 17. And we certainly have a lot of different types of programming happening across the state, because we do individualize and look at what does that community need. Do we have the skill sets to do that? And in fact, we have realigned our staffing in the last year and a half, 2 years. And Abby was one of the hires on that to create a network across the state to strengthen and enhance what we've been doing. There's great programs all around the state, and how do we share and network that? And so we've actually realigned and put people into focus areas a little bit more, so that we can take their expertise and have it go across the state. So yes, we have a bandwidth of over 300 people, I believe. So that sounds too low. Anyhow, don't take that number on record. The reality is we have an extensive group. I myself cover the northern area. That's everything but Clark County and Lincoln and Pahrump. But we do network. We work together to make things happen, and that creates a power within itself. So when we drill down into a community, yes, when we're talking Washoe, we talk about the people we've listened to, worked with, and we work with definitely the counties, some of the city people, but also nonprofits and community members we can partner with. So we certainly partner, with the caregivers program. You're talking and communicating with those that are connecting with it. And it doesn't matter which program we do. Like the Living with Fire slide is the one up. That Adapted Nevada Summit has just about everybody you can dream of that deals with fire into that program, and that's why there was such a good attendance, and I think they expect even more this year, in that you've got to work together to address big issues. You can't do it alone, and we all haven't got a lot of money or people to do these things. So when we partner, we listen, we hear what's going on, and we literally come every few months and talk to people and say, hey, what are you hearing? What's going on? Is there anything that Extension can partner with and be to do that? So yes, that's how we function every day, and we forget to mention it, so thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work and the entire team.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it very much. I've been involved with 4-H and that part of Extension for years and years, so we have some interesting talks.
Yes,
don't
for
we?
sure. Yes, we do.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
We appreciate you. The next presentation is regarding Reno Justice Court's Housing Court Program by Honorable Judge Kendra Birchie.
Yes, so, Madam Chair, item 8 is a presentation regarding Reno Justice Court's Housing Court Program by the Honorable Judge Kendra Birchie. Reno Justice Court, as well as Jana Litz, Housing Manager, Housing and Neighborhood Development, City of Reno, and Jeremy Wilson, Assistant Court Administrator for Reno Justice Court. My apologies if I butchered anybody's name.
Good morning. Vice Chair Hill, members of the County Commission, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Kendra Birchie, and I am a Justice of the Peace with the Reno Justice Court. Today with me, I am so excited to have our partners who are here to provide this commission with information about a new pilot project or program that the Reno Justice Court initiated this past year called Housing Court. Presenting with me today are Jana Lintz, the Housing Manager with Housing and Neighborhood Development, HAND, with the City of Reno, Kimberly Pickens, the Veterans Liaison and Outreach Specialist with Nation's Finest, and Jeremy Wilson, the Reno Justice Court Assistant Administrator for our court. I also have here today Caitlin Pietmeyer, the Management Assistant with HAND, City of Reno. She is the representative for the City of Reno during our proceedings. Monica Kirch, the Director of HAND with the City of Reno. Additionally, our legal partners, Alex Cherup, Nevada Legal Services Executive Director, and Elena Butko with the Self-Help Managing Attorney with the Northern Nevada Legal Services is also present here today. According to the National Center for State Courts, every year nationally, millions of families face the threat of eviction. Several states have initiated eviction diversion courts and programs to address this need. Here in Reno in 2023, Reno Justice Court processed approximately 4,433 new landlord-tenant cases. According to the Administrative Office of the Court's annual report for the Nevada Judiciary, in 2022, Reno processed 3,328 what we call real property cases. In the report that was just recently published for 2024, Reno Justice Court processed 4,719 new landlord-tenant cases in 2024. So what is Housing Court? Basically, Housing Court is a program that works with those who are on the verge of homelessness, those who are facing eviction due to non-payment of rent. It is a program that we created based on national best practices that is also referred to as an eviction diversion court. Housing Court is a specialized problem-solving court designed to address the root causes of eviction while balancing the needs of landlords and tenants to better serve our community members. It provides tenants facing eviction with expedited access to rental assistance and tools to promote sustained stability. Simultaneously, it provides prompt payment to landlords for past due rent. The program targets tenants who face temporary financial hardships, for example, due to an unforeseen life event, and offers expedited rental assistance to bridge the gap while they work towards financial stability. The goal is to reduce homelessness, stabilize housing, and minimize the financial and emotional burdens of eviction for all parties, all while preserving judicial efficiency. It's a proactive, collaborative approach to resolving housing disputes before it escalates to an eviction. In May of 2025, we met with stakeholders to begin our discussions regarding an eviction diversion program. Through our collaborations, we created this pilot program, and I'll just note that this was based off of $0. We used existing resources And I just want to really thank all of our stakeholders who took the time to meet with us, the other judges in Reno Justice Court, our court staff who dedicated their time, their attention, again, all of the volunteers and the organizations that you'll hear from did this pro bono for us, again, without any additional resources. So we utilized what we had in our community to see what strategically we could do to create a program that would assist. And through our collaborations, we created this pilot program to address the needs and resources that we saw in our community. In August of this year, we had our first housing court docket where we were able to then address the needs of individuals here in Reno Justice Court. And so I'll turn now to more about the eligibility.
Good morning. I'm Jana Litz with the City of Reno, for the record. The program funding and eligibility, when we met with the court, we had previously done an eviction diversion program in fiscal year 24 with some funding that we received from Assembly Bill 396. And we helped over 200 households with that. But that program lacked the ability to properly prepare tenants for future obstacles and staying housed. So we were really excited to join this partnership and put some things into play that will really help build a foundation for these tenants to prevent this cycle of housing instability from occurring. We allocated $500,000 to this pilot program from the Assembly Bill 396 funding that we received. Participants have to make at or below 60% of the area median income. They have to have a sustainable income and be able to pay their rent going forward after the assistance. And they must have received an eviction notice for non-payment of rent, not for another reason. One of the pieces that the city requires for this program is that the participants participate in financial literacy training with Opportunity Alliance of Nevada. So they do a budget plan in order to qualify for our assistance through this program.
So just to make sure we're all on the same page of what happens in eviction proceedings. So in the typical eviction case for a non-payment of rent, how it'll be initiated is the tenant will receive what we call a non-payment of rent eviction notice from the landlord that initiates the whole process. Then the tenant has to come to court and file an affidavit with the court. Then the landlord files a reply, and the case is set out for a hearing in approximately 14 days. Then with housing court, the tenant, still again, it's initiated by receiving that non-payment of rent eviction notice from the landlord. The tenant comes to Reno Justice Court where they're then screened by our staff to determine whether or not they would qualify for housing court while they're completing their tenant's affidavit. If they're pre-qualified, they receive a request and they complete that request to participate in housing court. They're then immediately directed to our Reno Justice Court Civil Self-Help Center that's located a few steps outside of where they file that affidavit to begin that application for rental assistance. If you have not come to our Reno Justice Court Civil Self-Help Center, I highly recommend that you come and take a tour and just see what we have available for you. I know that Commissioner Clark was present for our ceremony where we initiated it last year. At that location, the tenant will receive services from our legal aid individuals who are, as I indicated here today, where they can receive assistance for completing that packet to fill out for the rental assistance, where they can receive assistance from an attorney to help answer some of their questions as well. Then the landlord will file the reply just like they would in the normal case, and the case is set out for 30 days in order to put it on the housing court docket to have enough time for the city of Reno to determine whether or not that individual does qualify for rental assistance. Then if they're approved, the City of Reno or Nation's Finest will notify the new participant as well as the landlord that they have been approved for their program. The tenant then will work with the rental assistance agency to complete any of the requirements and documentation. The rental assistance agency will notify all parties of the approval or denial. If approved, they will pay the landlord directly, and then the cases are dismissed and sealed. If they're not approved before that first hearing, we have a City of Reno representative at every single hearing to provide updates in real time, ensuring that the parties have the most up-to-date information as to what the status is of the application before making decisions. If we need to continue hearings or if more assistance is needed, we do have additional services in place that we can provide the tenants with in order to help address the systemic factors that may have led to that individual's instability and coming into court in the first place.
Good morning, Jeremy Wilson, Assistant Court Administrator for Reno Justice Court, and I get the pleasure of talking about the different partners that we have baked into this overall eviction diversion housing court. None of this would be possible without our partners. So the City of Reno Housing and Neighborhood Development Team, Nation's Finest, which specifically offers rental assistance and additional programming for our community veterans, the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services, where we have an eligibility worker on site at the courthouse helping people get connected to Medicaid or additional statewide resources. And that's open to anybody, not just people in this program. Our legal partners, Nevada Legal Services and Northern Nevada Legal Aid, who are both here, who staff and support everybody who comes in with civil self-help within our court. The Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce, they were spoken about earlier today. They do the same thing for the people who come through our program as well, helping them find those jobs in our community to ensure that they're housed and sustainable. The Nevada Literacy Council, Opportunity Alliance Nevada, doing financial services and financial literacy training for people within this program, again, to ensure that we're not in the same space that they're currently in the next 3 months. So this is a community collective piece that we are keeping people housed here in Reno. I'm going to hand it back over to our friends at the City of Reno to talk about the impact that this program has specifically had.
Thank you. Try to go quickly over this. So since we started the program in August, we only had a few cases that we assisted in August. But through November of 2024, we assisted 46 households through the program. It's worth noting that after December's numbers, we are up to 66 households that have been assisted. 80% of those remain housed based on a survey we did of landlords. Out of those households, 167 people total were assisted. And one of the focuses with that funding source of Assembly Bill 396 is to help seniors and people with disabilities. So we did have some households in that. We spent $200,000 in the first 4 months. We're going to fully expend the $500,000 initial pilot allocation before the end of the fiscal year and surpass our goal of 50 households.
Kimberly Pickens with Nation's Finest. So we have been able to help 4 households through this program outside of additional services that we provide through court systems. That's 7 individuals. 100% of these are still housed, and we've only expended $11,484. The great thing about being a part of this program for Nation's Finest is reaching veterans who don't know that they are eligible for services with Nation's Finest, and being able to then provide wraparound services that include case management, healthcare navigation, housing locator if they need to move for some reason, if they're no longer able to afford those payments, transitional housing if they have mental health crises that are going on, and food pantry. So we're really excited to be a part of this collaboration.
So what's next? As we've been able to see that this program does work. Although housing court is not a solution to the housing crisis or homelessness, it is one step towards stabilizing housing, supporting landlords, and strengthening our community. There are a few items that we are working on in order to continue the success of the program, specifically looking for additional funding resources, furthering partnerships with different legal aid or nonprofit legal organizations in order to ensure that we have what we can in order to assist those individuals so they don't come back before the court for another eviction. Utilizing a case management system for participants. What we're trying to do is incorporate those therapeutic court models that I presented to this commission last year on, that are evidence-based practices that have shown to reduce recidivism, but more importantly, strengthen our community members. And so that's what we are hoping to utilize in this program as well, and expand resources available within the state of Nevada and our current community-based organizations. Thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask our commissioners if they have any questions or comments. And I'll start over here with
Thank you, Madam
Garcia.
Vice Chair. Thank you so much for showing not only the impact, but also educating us on how powerful a piece of legislation can be to move real change in cities throughout Nevada. And I'm looking at the bill right now. I'll get with Cadence Matievich later to learn more, but you've built something so powerful in such a short amount of time, and you have shown the results. I mean, this is, to me, not only proactive, but kind of encapsulates like this holistic model that we should really be striving for. What kind of stood out to me is it's beneficial to the individual and the family associated, but the tenant as well, or the landowner as well. And so everybody is just getting a helping hand in streamlining these processes. So when I just kind of look at it from my school counselor lens, where you work with families, and I think a big part of the story that's often forgotten is how traumatic these evictions are for the adults and children in the household, and how that can leave really long-lasting stress and anxiety and a whole slew of other issues that I know that you're all very much aware of. So keeping people in their home means that they are more likely to stay employed. It means that they're going to be able to stay in their neighborhoods and communities and maintain that social connectedness. All of that is so therapeutic in making sure that we have a healthy community. So I'm just really impressed. Thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you. And Commissioner Andriola.
Thanks for the presentation, and thanks to all the partners that really collectively make this program successful. I am leaning a little bit, obviously Commissioner Garcia brought up talking to Cadence, but is there any indication in terms of because there's a result, right, of AB 396 and measurements, right, and outcomes. And I'm wondering if there's any appetite for anybody in Carson, an elected official, to look at carrying that. And I'm also, so that's number one. And number two, is there other programs modeled like this within Nevada? I don't know if I haven't looked at AB 396, so I'm not sure the breadth of that. So I was just curious.
Thank you, Kendra Birchie, for the record. With respect to other Carson's legislative representatives in Carson are looking at this, it's my understanding that they are. I have noticed that there are some bills that were put forward regarding eviction diversion, but more importantly, I know that we're looking with stakeholders, and I would be more than willing to work with your lobbyists as well to determine just what else could be done to make sure that we really strengthen this process. I will just note that Las Vegas Justice Court does have an eviction diversion court. It is slightly different than ours, but they do have one as well in Nevada.
Thank you. And I think the fact that you made it very clear at the beginning of your presentation, this isn't necessarily targeted to looking at a solution for attainable housing, but looking at it to be a product of that piece, and it has an integral part in that. And so certainly attainable housing is going to be at the forefront for all of those folks in Carson that'll soon be really busy and running the next 120 days. But I do think it's really important to say thank you, because you yourself, along with, it looked like Justice Hashef as well was involved in this, and all of the partners, as I already mentioned. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing how this all transpires, because it's new. Now you have measurements, and so it looks like it's not going away, which is a good thing. Thank you.
Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to salute your efforts. You're doing a great job there. Anytime you can keep 167 people from being evicted and off the streets is some significant outcomes as far as I'm concerned. I'd like to find out, you gave a lot of statistics. I wasn't able to write them down fast enough, but 4,000 cases. And I'm wondering, out of those, what percentage were seniors? Do you track that at all with seniors? And I don't expect an answer right now, but just something in the future. I'm very focused on seniors, so I'm interested in how many seniors we're keeping from being evicted. If you can get that number. I don't need it right now, but.
Kendra Birchie for the record. With the numbers that I pulled, just so you have that information, they're all located online through the Administrative Office of the Courts for Nevada. They are the annual reports that are published every year. With respect specifically for seniors, I will get back to you on whether or not we have been able to look at those that data for the past several years. That is one of what we are looking at in our current housing court, and so we do have those numbers for housing court.
I also like the fact that you're working with the landlords. I mean, there's two sides of this equation. There's folks that need a place to live, and the landlords. National Association of Realtors statistics show that, and I'm a property manager for the last 40 years, so I know about rentals and evictions and that type of thing. So National Association of Realtors says that most landlords are mom and pops. They have one or two. They're not all big corporations. Those folks need to pay their mortgage, they need to pay their property tax, they have to pay utilities in many cases, insurance, and so the landlords have bills too. I mean, the landlords in many cases are one paycheck away from foreclosure, and many cases the tenants are one paycheck away from eviction. So I mean, they're both in the same boat, just on different levels, just more zeros or more numbers behind the bill. So it's important that they're addressed as well. So I like the way that you're working with them, and anything I can ever do to help your organization, I'd be happy to. I like that you're working with the chamber. You recognize that the chamber can help people elevate their station in life with better careers. I mentioned earlier senior rescue. This is right up their alley. I'd like to introduce you to those folks, and they're specifically interested in landlords that have rent increases and might be facing eviction. So anything we can do to nip this in the bud before people become homeless is very, very important in our community. So thank you for the good work you're doing.
Vice Chair Herman, if I may respond.
Pardon?
If I may respond.
Yes.
Thank you, Kendra Birchie, for the record. One thing that Commissioner Clark just brought up that I really want to highlight with respect to the landlords is part of the great work that the City of Reno has done with expediting their rental assistance process in order for those who are involved in housing court. With their dedicated personnel, they're able to get us those decisions prior to the 30 days. So for that first hearing, to ensure that people aren't coming back for continued hearings because we're waiting on delay of the rental assistance. On average, it takes approximately 12 weeks for a current rental assistance application. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all had that information to know just how important it is for all of us as part of this program to ensure those timely decisions are reached. Thank you.
Well, you've done such a good job presenting, and our commissioners have asked such great questions and gotten such good answers. I am thanking you myself for your presentation. It's excellent. Thank you. Good service. And now, Mr. Manager, would you like to make the presentation?
Item number 9, Madam Chair, is a presentation and update by Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering and Capital Projects, regarding Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, floodplain risk management projects within Washoe County.
Good morning. For the record, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering and Capital Projects. I wanted to provide you a brief update today on FEMA mapping projects within the county. In order to talk about that, we do have just a couple of slides on what FEMA flood risk maps are and Washoe County's role in FEMA's flood management programs. So I wanted to, of course, as we go through the presentation at the end, I want you to know that FEMA is active in FEMA's flood programs. We review and condition new development using FEMA's requirements and Washoe County's enhancements to those FEMA requirements. We perform community outreach and share information with our residents and business owners that have structures in FEMA floodplains so that they can make the best decisions. And we also work with our other agencies, our regional emergency manager, and we respond to those issues that come up from time to time. With me today is Rob Weimer. Rob is a licensed engineer and a floodplain professional in our division. He's responsible for the Community Rating System program, and he also leads the CAVs, the Community Assistance Visits, which are FEMA's visits where they come and make sure that we're complying with FEMA's requirements. Also joining me today is Janelle Thomas. She's a senior licensed engineer. She's a certified floodplain manager, and her team oversees all new development, all the conditioning, and all the approaches that are necessary to keep our communities safe. And Janelle also collaborates with our other regional partners, including organizations such as the Truckee River Flood Management Authority. There's a lot of terminology: floodplain maps, risk maps, flood insurance rate maps. All of these are really the same thing. Floodplain maps or risk maps are tools that graphically show the risk of flooding in areas. They're really snapshots in time. Any map is a graphical indication of a snapshot in time about what that particular flood risk is. They show high hazard zones. Those are zones such as A, and if you're in a coastal area, zones such as V. We refer to sometimes those high-risk areas as 100-year floodplains or the 1%. They also show moderate hazard zones. These are zones like B and X shaded. And these are some of the lower risk areas or moderate and lower risk areas, 500-year floodplain areas or 0.2% risk. What's interesting is about 60% of the country has current floodplain maps. And out of that 60%, quite a bit of those floodplain maps are out of date or conditions have changed and made those maps not as effective. In fact, about 30% of all the annual flood claims that FEMA receives, these are floods that have damaged structures, damaged properties. About 30% of those are outside of those high-risk designated areas. I'll just quickly note that picture that you see up on the screen. That's out of the 4 residences that had water in the living space during the Lemon Valley flooding in 2017. That house is the first house to have water in the living space. That's Steve and Nola Nichols' house. They're the previous owners. We worked with them and ultimately purchased that home. But I want to make the note that that home is not currently located in a FEMA flood risk area, high-risk area. So that points out the fact that maps are old, can be old, outdated, and inaccurate. Who uses floodplain maps? Well, of course, floodplain managers such as us. This allows us to set building requirements as communities grow and develop. Flood insurance rating. So lenders and insurers also use flood risk maps to assign the appropriate insurance rates for those structures. Community officials. We use maps to identify areas for eligibility for grant programs. For instance, FEMA has HMGP and BRIC. Those are the Home Mitigation Grant, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and Building Resilience and Infrastructure in Communities. These are programs that allow us to do good things to help reduce our risk in our community. I'm going to talk briefly about the 1% annual reoccurrence interval. But again, I just wanted to point out that why it's so important to update our maps periodically. Things change. As I've said, FEMA maps, the risk maps, are snapshots, and they're based at that point in time on the best information that is available. When we do update maps, I just want to quickly reaffirm that we do use a variety of tools. Most importantly is local knowledge. So when we're dealing with unincorporated Washoe County and flood risks within Washoe County, mapping those flood risks, it doesn't get any better than those individuals that work and live within the community. So we rely on the professionals here at Washoe County and other organizations, and also our residents to help us go through these processes. Just quickly, and I put this slide in here just to remind everybody that a 100-year event doesn't mean that you will only be potentially flooded once in 100 years. It really is just a risk reoccurrence interval. We calculate this based on all the factors, including those risk maps, precipitation events, and other local elements. For instance, I've had people say, hey, I got flooded 5 years ago, so that means I won't get flooded again for 95 years, right? No, that's not what that means. Every year, you are at risk of being flooded. As a matter of fact, for those that hold 30-year mortgages like myself, if you're located in a 100-year floodplain, you actually have about a 26% chance of being flooded once in that 30-year period. Those are pretty high statistics. As I mentioned, flood risks do change over time, and so as we assess what those risks are and capture those risks and identify those risks in our maps, we use local knowledge. We also use updated digital techniques to map these. So I mentioned Steve and Nola's house out in Lemon Valley. That's likely because when FEMA originally created that map, it didn't have the best topography available. We now use items such as LiDAR, which are terrain mapping techniques that really allow us to understand what the topography is. Very key and critical in helping us assess that risk and capturing that accurately on maps. We have better modeling techniques, so it's not just about the terrain, but it's about how much rain, precipitation, snow melt, and water that comes into an area. So with those better computer models, we're able to more accurately assign and understand what that risk is. There can be changes in land use. Certainly as new development occurs, that does change FEMA floodplains. They are obligated to follow FEMA's rules and Washoe County's rules in new development. So you'll hear about things where maybe new development builds channels or elevates properties, those types of things. Those are important to capture in our risk mapping processes as well. And that leads to code and ordinance updates. For instance, you as the board approved the policy to increase the volumetric mitigation required in FEMA floodplains a few years ago. We went from basically a 1-to-1 volumetric mitigation requirement to a 1.3-to-1. So 30% more volumetric mitigation requirement for new development in FEMA floodplains. I put the last bullet up there, weather pattern changes. We all know that as winters get warmer and they get rainier, that certainly does affect us here locally, but of course across the country we're seeing more weather pattern changes. Excuse me, can't get that out. Mitigation. Mitigation walks hand in hand with risk assessment. So really mitigation is taking those risks and then determining what we can do to help eliminate or mitigate or reduce what those flood impacts are. We can't do that if we don't understand what those risks are. So really it comes down to understanding what is going on in our FEMA floodplains in all of our areas. We want to break that cycle of disaster damage through that knowledge and through those mitigation approaches. And again, just speaking, that last bullet is to really speak to new development and help us reduce some of those impacts associated with development. Of course, Washoe County, as you're hearing me speak, obviously Washoe County has a big role in floodplain management. We are obligated to implement FEMA's requirements. In the 80s, Washoe County adopted FEMA's flood management programs. So when new development comes in and they want to build in a FEMA floodplain or they want to do some type of activity or action, we are applying those rules and requirements through our development code. Again, we work collaboratively with other agencies. And I wanted to just quickly focus on that last bullet there, education and outreach. That's really an important part of what we do. We can follow all the rules. We can make sure that all of our ordinances are current and up to date. We can work with our community partners like the cities of Reno and Sparks and Truckee Meadows Flood Management Authority. But if we don't get out in the community and let the community know what's going on in their areas, then we haven't done our job. That kind of steps into that last bullet there, the floodplain mapping project. So currently, we're working on 3 areas of Washoe County. These areas, I'll jump right to that slide. The first area is up in North Spanish Springs. This is the Boneyard Flat Closed Basin. So we've been working on this for a couple of years. We had a community meeting where we invited the property owners that are around the Boneyard Flat, the master developer, and anybody else that was interested in learning more about the Boneyard Flat Closed Hydro Basin. I put that effective date, it's an older map date, 9/14/2014, certainly not the oldest, but we've been working on this for a couple of years. The master developer made some changes, and it allowed for a better outcome in this map update. We look forward to getting this final map the middle of this year. I really want to touch base on this next project. This is up in Lemon Valley. This is associated with Swan Lake. You'll see that the current effective map date is 2009. We've done all of the technical work to update the map in this area. But as I said before, our commitment to our community is to let them know what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it. And so we have a public meeting next week, next Wednesday night. It's going to be from 4:30 to 7 out at the community center in the North Valleys. I really encourage everybody to come. And as a matter of fact, not only did we send out letters to the property owners that are immediately around Swan Lake, but we went ahead and sent letters out to everybody in the Lemon Valley area, because even though there may be people that are outside of that particular floodplain, they're still part of that community and really need to know what's going on within that community. So I really look forward to having that discussion with folks and sharing with folks what we're doing and as we move forward in that map update process. The last one I just want to quickly mention, this is in the South Truckee Meadows. This is associated with Whites, Thomas, Galena, and Steamboat Creeks. We're doing this one in very close collaboration with the City of Reno. Again, going back to my comment earlier, local knowledge. And so this is an area in the South Truckee Meadows where these maps have not been touched in many years as well. It's an alluvial fan. There are a lot of challenges out here. We look forward to getting more of the technical data under our belts so that we can do the same thing, have public meetings, reach out into the community and share with those folks that are potentially impacted by changes in the floodplain. So I just wanted to quickly bring this to you, let you know a few things about what your staff is doing as we go through the new development process, and more importantly, the flood risk assessment processes as we're updating maps. FEMA requires us to update these maps, or at least look into and understand if these maps are out of date. And so that's part of what we're doing, is our obligation to FEMA. We do work closely, of course, with FEMA as we update these maps. And we, again, want to make sure that you're fully aware of what we're doing with the community. I gave you 3 examples of some of our remapping projects that are going on right now. There's more to come as funding becomes more and more available, and as we work through our risk kind of assessment list of areas. Some future areas in the not too distant future are Hidden Valley. We know in July last year we had some flash flooding over there and pointed out some issues with the old maps that exist there. And Sun Valley is another area that is very needs some care and diligence and some local knowledge applied to those flood risk maps as well. So again, I just wanted to assure you that your staff is fully engaged with the FEMA processes, risk assessment, leading to mitigation. I wanted to make sure that you're also comfortable with what we're doing with our community outreach meetings, and also assure you that as new development comes in the door, we're appropriately applying those requirements and rules that both FEMA and Washoe County have assigned to new development within those areas. So just wanted to quickly provide that for you, and if you have any questions, happy to answer those for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And how about our commissioners? Do they have any questions?
I do, but Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your good work on this, Mr. Smith. You know, we've got, on one hand, we've got fires that we have to worry about. On the other hand, we have floods that we have to worry about. It just doesn't take much to figure out. If you look around where we live, we're surrounded by mountains. I mean, if we get a heavy rain and a cell that doesn't move, and I think the Hidden Valley is a good example of that. The water just kind of stayed in the air above them and then released, and the flood. That could happen anywhere. It's happened in Spanish Springs. It's happened in Sparks. It's happened, you know, it could happen anywhere. I live near Jumbo Gray. That could happen right there in Washoe Valley. So it's good to know, and it's good to have updates, and you gave a good presentation to me in my office about this, and so I've got a good understanding, and I'm glad you brought this to the board and sharing this. We need to make sure that the public's aware of flood risks as much as they're worried about or could be concerned about fire risks. It's just Mother Nature, and could be destructive either way, and cost a lot in property damage and human life. So thanks for bringing this to our attention and updating this, and good work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great presentation, and I'll also echo thanking you for taking the time to go over in a lot of detail, a lot more than even you presented, and to the team that actually supports all of this. You mentioned, well, and I also want to thanks for extending the notification to not just the folks that are, if you will, immediately impacted, but also the community that's impacted. I think that's really helpful so that everyone understands the information and the facts and be able to quell any uncertainty that may arise. You mentioned at the latter part of your presentation that there's going to be this continued remapping. You just shared three if you will, but there's going to be continued. And then you stated as funding becomes available, and I'm wondering if you could expand on what that means.
Yeah, again, for the record, Dwayne Smith. Commissioner, I think the best way to say it is that while FEMA expects and obligates communities to update their maps, FEMA does provide funding in some cases. When FEMA goes into a community, and this is a comment that's made by Dwayne Smith, and I just want to clarify or qualify that, but they come into a community without local knowledge, without local understanding, and with the lowest cost consultant, and they paint with a broad brush. We have found and consistently do a better job when local experts, local consultants, and certainly the people like your staff and at the city's arena and Sparks, and certainly at the Truckee Meadows Truckee River Flood Management Authority, do a better job with that local knowledge, and we use a fine-tooth comb approach to those flood map projects and those updates. We've seen it where FEMA has come in and painted with a broad brush, and a lot of those properties or homes or structures may not actually be in the floodplain. Now, there's processes that you can go through to pull your house or your structure out of the floodplain. But once that floodplain is confirmed and approved and goes through the public protest periods and then is ultimately placed up on the websites, that process to go through and potentially remove that home can be costly, takes time. So we find that applying that kind of fine-tooth comb approach, local knowledge, care and diligence from the beginning is a much better approach, but it does cost money. So remember in March last year, I came to you with an agreement, a partnership with the city of Reno for the South Tributary Project, that third project I just talked about briefly. So that's a great example where we're marrying Washoe County and City of Reno dollars to take that approach to make sure that any changes to the floodplain map are as careful, diligent, and accurate as possible.
Thanks, and I think that it's important that you actually brought up the other jurisdictions in helping with that, because it does impact, our entire community. I think there's also the point about by having a broad brush with FEMA, to your point, that the cost to those homeowners also may have a direct impact in terms of their insurance that may not actually be applicable, if you will, in terms of being laser focused and doing the data-driven analysis that the team does, I think is really important. So I think it's a testament to the hard work of the team being cognizant of being really laser focused and protecting that particular area wherever it might be. So thank you for just clarifying what your statement meant, because it is important as these maps appear to be old or needing update, I'll do it that way. And then I really want to reiterate the statement that you made in terms of any new development is actually taking into consideration that laser focus. So it's not necessarily just looking at the condition of the old maps that are existing depending on the situation. So thank you again to you and your team. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Garcia? No? Thank you so much. We had a good talk in the past here about this project, and I will be at that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we are going to have that proclamation we've been waiting for. Commissioner Garcia.
Good morning, Commissioner Garcia for the record. And I was going to read the proclamation as we typically do, but I thought today I would highlight the fact that advocacy and care for the community takes many shapes and forms. We have some partnering organizations here in the crowd today, so we welcome any of the representatives to join us up here. Mr. Terry Brooks and I are going to read this proclamation on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. We got a big crowd, Terry. Let's not mess this up. Thank you all for being here today. Whereas the well-being of every member of our community is a shared responsibility, and in Washoe County we are proud to support a network of essential services designed to provide care, support, and pathways to stability for those who experience homelessness. And
whereas the individuals working on the front lines of homeless services, case managers, outreach workers, shelter staff, social workers, and all others in this vital field dedicate themselves daily to addressing complex, often urgent needs with compassion, skill, and resilience. And
whereas these dedicated professionals not only practical assistance, but also a sense of hope and dignity to some of the most vulnerable members of our community, striving to ensure that no one is left behind and that each person has access to the resources needed to rebuild their lives. And
whereas the work of homeless services is not always visible or celebrated, yet the commitment, empathy, and tireless efforts of these workers form the backbone of a compassionate society. And
frontline workers in homeless services face significant challenges, including high levels of stress, emotional tolls, limited resources, and the complexity of addressing the diverse needs of individuals experiencing homelessness while consistently going above and beyond in their duties, working long hours, enduring personal and professional sacrifices, and ensuring that those that they serve receive the care and attention they deserve, often without recognition or public praise. And
whereas the work of the homeless services from frontline workers is essential not only to the individuals they directly assist, but to the overall health, safety, and dignity of our entire community. And
now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners does hereby proclaim to acknowledge and honor the essential work of Homeless Services Frontline Workers Day. And with us, we have representatives from RISE, Volunteers of America, and Karma Box. Does anybody want to say anything? Any brave soul? All right. I think we'll just take that as a form of a motion, Madam Vice Chair.
I'll second.
Thank you. And all in favor?
And there's no one signed in to
Okay,
speak.
no one in public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then if we can, take a group photo before we move
That
on to the
would be
next agenda
wonderful.
item. Thank you.
I was going to ask.
Do you guys want to come in? All right, good job. Sarah, you did great. Oh, it's got to go to the organizations. What's that? You're welcome to join us for the photo too, if you'd like. Yeah.
A week. Well, San Diego. LA, just 2 days. I've got some buddies on the fire. LA fire. It's worse in person. Really bad. Especially Altadena. We saw a lot of refugees at the hotels we stayed in. Trying to figure out where they're going next. Unbelievable. But if you listen to the emergency management fire folks, they had a severe funding problem. They were not sustaining equipment and staffing, so they couldn't do the proactive mitigation stuff that we do here, and it bit them. So. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Now we're into consent items. Is there any public comment?
Yes, Rich Bissett? Rich Bissett?
Okay, all right. So do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, just for the record, I'd read in that the consent items are items 10A1 through 10C1. So now proceed.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Vice Chair, I move to approve consent as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. The consent agenda has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any opposed? None? Looks like we have an answer. And now we have item 11.
Item 11 is a recommendation to award and bid and approve the agreement to the lowest responsible bidder for the Riverbend Trailhead Project, PWP-WA-2025-024, Staff recommends Frank Lepore Construction, Inc. in the amount of $403,287.85. Base bid in the amount of $380,932.85, plus bid alternative one in the amount of $20,000, and bid alternative two in the amount of $2,355. And number two, approve a separate project contingency fund in the amount of $56,000 for a total project cost not to exceed $459,287.85. The project is located at 2555 Highway 40, West 13 in Verdi, Nevada, and the scope of work includes construction of a new public trailhead and access path.
And do I have a motion? Oh, public comment? Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, we will have public comment.
No one is signed in.
All right. So, do I have a motion?
I move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So and it looks like it passes unanimously. So now we are into item 12.
Item 12 is our final public comment. Comment heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the commission agenda. The commission will also hear public comment during the individual action items with comment limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments are to be made to the commission as a whole.
First up is Roger Edwards.
Good afternoon, Roger Edwards for the record. Please enter my comments into the permanent record. Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on. Maybe you folks aren't aware, but this guy that was just up here giving you the song and dance about why they didn't update the flood maps were people like me who are general contractors can't do a project because a piece of property is in the floodplain. And the county hasn't updated the maps for 16 years. 16 years, and he gave you all this dancing around, well, things change and this and that. His department is the ones responsible for updating the floodplain maps. They impact the development community, and he's still just doing his song and dance. That person was one for 3 years, did the song and dance once he was brought, the water recharge program to his attention. His department and him personally is responsible for 3 years of unsolicited donations to our fund, supposedly, $500,000 that was taken from the community for services not rendered. He is single-handedly responsible for that debacle. That was his and his solely. He brought in an assistant finally after 2 years of us complaining about it to help, and then that didn't help either. Still didn't start the program going. Dwayne Smith, your development head, was personally responsible for taking $300,000+ of unwarranted funds from my 600 neighbors. And you just give him pats on the back of why he's doing so good, why he hasn't done a floodplain map in 15 years, 16. Come on, folks. That's the guy that's responsible. You let him out of here without even asking him about why I'm still being charged late fees. He's the guy, his department, that's him. If you're not going to ask him, how about you guys asking him? You're my representative. Come on. That's the guy. You let him out of here without getting him to answer you one question. And why is it my cab can't have a meeting? My neighborhood doesn't get any information without a cab meeting. And I didn't get that letter that he was talking about sending out to all the neighbors. Well, Golden Valley is a neighbor of Lemon Valley, folks. I didn't get any notice. I'm going to be there. But he's been blowing you guys' skirts up, and we haven't been getting any representation.
Susan Van Ness.
Susan Van Ness for the record, and I second everything that Roger just said about Dwayne Smith and about our North Valley's meeting. We cannot go in there and have a discussion with our neighbors because they keep getting canceled. Now, is that canceling due to whom? Why? And I want to know if Teresa can't be there and hasn't been there, then maybe she should resign. If it's Alexandria, I don't know. Now, the other thing we want to talk about is what's going on with our elections. There's a group that's formed, and there's a whole list of NRS statutes that were violated from the last election. Who is going to be our ROV? This should not be secret. We have a few people in this county who are scholars who have come together and put together some paperwork, and we need a citizen advisory group. These can't be secret meetings that you're having to choose the next ROV. This needs to be public. And we need to question our last person in charge, McDonald, because we've done plenty of research. We've got some research on his past employment, and I want to ask him. I'm not accusing him. I want to know. But also, U.S. Code 52 requires all election data, paperwork, electronic, everything to do with our election, because it was a federal election, needs to be held for 22 months. Now, all this is being kept from us. We don't know where all of that is, do we? You can't keep all this secret from the people. I understand that being a commissioner, you don't know the insides of how all the election works, and that's some of our research. But include the citizens on this. Now, there is a fine and possible imprisonment for anyone's name that was in that election running it. Imprisonment and fine. If they don't keep these 22 months. U.S. Code 20701, federal election. Now, will you include a citizens group to come forward and be with you to choose the next registrar of voters? Or are you going to leave us out of it again? I ask you to please pick a few people that can come back to us and inform us, because we're not getting informed. Thank you very much. And there are only two genders.
No one else is signed in, but we do have some emails to place on the record.
Thank you. And now we have the last commissioner manager announcements.
So item 13 is commissioners and county managers' announcements, reports, and updates to include boards and commissions updates, requests for information, or topics for future agendas.
Do we have any of those? Who would like to be first? Mr. Clark?
Anybody else? First of all, I'd like to address comments made by the public commenters. I agree with Ms. Van Ness. We should have a citizens advisory board and have citizens' involvement in selecting our new registrar of voters. Maybe we can pick somebody who wouldn't be so stressed out if they had the support of the community. And so I agree with her comments. We've got Roger again talking about his situation. I don't know how we're going to put this to bed. He's just looking to not get a bill any further. There's $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in a savings account or an account somewhere that the county's holding. Nobody's asking for their money back. How can we get this man some relief while he's asking for this on a regular basis, and we just can't seem to get this fixed? I don't know. It's way above my pay grade. I need some help from the manager's office or whoever's running these departments to see if we can quit sending Roger a late bill and a bill for services not rendered. Next, I want to thank the other commissioners for the last 2 meetings. I think have been very civil, very pleasant meetings, pleasant to be here. I thank Commissioner Vice Chair Herman for running these meetings. I noticed the last 2 meetings, we haven't had any sheriff's deputies here, which is always pleasant. They probably were bored to death sitting around watching people talk about things that concern them. So we didn't have to pay sheriffs to be in here babysitting the public, which I think is a good idea. Again, I want to talk about the CHAB meeting. I'm going to make again the request. I'd like to have a CHAB meeting agendized and brought forward so we can inform our partners, Reno and Sparks, and the community of what exactly is taking place with the Homeless Advisory Board. I'd like to also bring up what I brought up last week, the term of the chair. I think that I'd like to see some support from other county commissioners on revisiting the 2-year rule for the term for a chair of this board. I think moving another person into position as a chair might make this a lot more pleasant to be here. You'd be surprised by who I might be able to support. I'd like to ask again for a tour of the CARES campus personally. I understand that the Judge Birchie and her group are going to go on a tour, and I'd like to request to go on that tour with them. I'd like also a report from the district attorney on the new federal guidelines that were signed into executive orders yesterday, how those might affect our county, which of those guidelines and rulings from the executive of the United States we might have to comply with. Can we pick and choose? Do we have to comply with all of those executive orders that affect us? And I'd like to know how that's going to be implemented and when that's going to be implemented and what our responsibility is commissioners to assist the county in complying with federal guidelines. So I'd like a report from the DA's office if I could get that. Thank you.
And since I don't have any other requests for information, I wanted to second all of the non-motions that Commissioner Clark made. I agree with every single one of them. And Mr. Manager, can we accommodate the removal of Mr. Edwards from the mailing list? If that will solve this problem?
Well, I don't want to get on a non-agendized item, but this is an issue that relates to the decision that the board made to staff on how to handle the recharge payments, which didn't include forgiving payments for folks who did not stay current up before the decision was made, if that makes any sense. So happy to talk to you offline about that, but that's essentially the issue as I understand.
maybe we should have, I'd like you to set up a meeting between Mr. Edwards, you and I, please.
We can do that.
Thank you. And,
I've got
like
one
I
other comment.
Okay, thank you.
To Mr. Manager Brown's point, maybe we need to have that as an agenda item in the future, to put it on the agenda so we can put this thing to bed and let the county commissioners, this is, again, something that wasn't brought to our attention when we discussed it and voted on it in the past. This is unintended consequences. This is a wrinkle that's appeared after we voted on it. It should be an easy item to fix. Put it on the agenda, and let's have a discussion, and let's have a vote on it, and stay within the open meeting law criteria. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes, I think,